About 5 years ago, I was sitting listening to a sermon. And the guy's talking about life and death. And he says, if there's no pulse and the lungs aren't working and the person isn't moving, we normally call that death. And then he had this pause and he says, unless. And when I heard the word unless, I got really interested. I said, what could possibly be on the other side of the word unless? And then he said, unless they're performing, Dr. Lebach, open heart surgery. He says, because then they suspend the pulse, the lungs collapse, and those things we call life temporarily don't exist. Now, the reason I share that story with you is life always produces, at least it seems for me, produces these really interesting entrees into what do I do with that information? So I'm sitting there absolutely mesmerized. I'm thinking, if this really exists, then I want to see it. So I left church. I called a friend of mine who's a surgeon. I said, look, Zoli, you got to put me in touch with a cardiac surgeon now. Of course, he was worried. What's wrong? Is there a problem? I said, there's no problem, Zoli. I don't have any time. Call your friend now and tell him I need to see him. And so he put me in touch with a surgeon, and I went and I followed up and I wrote 5 pages of questions. And I sat down with this surgeon and we started talking, and I asked him questions and another question. And he saw my 5 pages and he thought he never told me, but he probably thought, oh no. And then he said, do you want to talk about this or do you want to see it? And I said, you are a mind reader. That is the last question on the last page. And so we fast forward to things, and then he gave me the opportunity to go in and witness a 10-hour surgery, open heart surgery. And the reason I use this example is I heard something, and then I reacted upon it. When we hear things from the stories, the speeches you heard tonight, there's an option you have. You can either take some of that information and react to it, or you can just take that information and, it was good to hear, process it, and forget it. I'm the kind of person who likes to take the information and figure out a way to do something with it. I can assure you that 10-hour experience in the hospital, when I watched the person, lungs collapse, their breastbone cut in two. I mean, he actually asked me, what do you want to see? I said, look, I want to see everything. So I only want to go in if I can see it all. I need to see the lungs. I'm not a doctor, I'm an economist. An economist, I think, needs to see the lungs collapse. But it's an unbelievable experience. And if you've never seen it, you're in a hospital, in a Hungarian hospital, and in the corner there's a Soviet machine that has a really low but steady sound. And when they hook the body onto that, you hear that's a big, ugly gray pump, and it just circulates the blood in that body. And she's no longer doing the work, the machine is. And so there's Soviet technology. And there are wonderful aspects of that story that you can start to use to create another story. And so what I'd like you to take home with you tonight is the speeches, whether or not it's Adam the doctor's story about hope, or Emish's story about who's raising who. Or if you think back to Franciszka, I mean, I am so proud of her making that. All the other people in her group quit. She didn't quit. She had great help from the school that she was in, and I can assure you that all of us who were there, and there were other people, so Emisha was there, Otis was there, Renata sitting at Franciszka's table was there, that what we learned in that process is unbelievable. We'll take it forward. Demen Dizotan, who talked about, I mean, can you imagine living in a family where one side of the family has been ruined by history, and the other side of the family has caused ruin in history? Talk about an interesting challenge. Look at Ildi. She talked about running and what she had to go through to get to the point of running. Or Gubby, a chair for crying out loud. But what a chair symbolizes for Gubby today as one of the leaders at UPS. Or Gaga, he just talked about, Daddy, where will I go? Many of you were not available, but on the 14th or on the 31st, there's a gal here, Freddie Enders. She was in our juniors group, and she ended the event here in the Marriott. with a speech that I think still, when people in that room, 180 people in that room, heard her speech, it sent the shiver up her spine. Bless you. Unbelievable human being. Monica. You guys did not see Monica when she first came into the class. I'm not even sure you wanted to come into that class. Right? But now if we go forward, Monica, are you a happy person that you did come into that class? I would assume so. And so what we've done in the course of 3 months, it's actually been a little bit more than 3 months, is we've learned to learn from each other. And we've turned these into stories. What you will remember easily is a story, something that happens, something that's personal. If it's just a textbook speech about numbers and what should happen, that's not very exciting. And so what we do in this little group, in this workshop, is we try to instill a desire in the person to want to learn and to want to take this art and master it. So there's nobody today, including myself certainly, but there's nobody in here that can run a race with somebody who's well known like Obama. But our goal is not to run a race with Obama. Our goal is to get people interested and excited about developing themselves, because that's a non-stop development process. And what'll be interesting, and will hopefully be around in 5 to 10 years from now, is to see where we got from where we're at today. Because as you saw, Kovac David, he actually finished last November. And we will start to rotate the people who've been through to come back and teach a class and to speak in as many venues as possible. Because we think if you have this and you develop the ability to touch people's hearts, what this country desperately needs, but not only this country, other countries, desperately needs people who are leaders, almost spiritual leaders, that can lift the group of people up and say, you know what, we'll make that extra effort. And it's going to happen at this level. It's not top down, it's from the bottom up. And these people have all demonstrated the ability to reach down deep. Because 2 weeks ago, you didn't see this, but 2 weeks ago, there was still movement in who will actually come up here. And we didn't let those that we felt had inside the ability to get up and produce something on this, we didn't let them off the hook. We said, you gave us your word, you will live up to your word. And they did. And what they take away from us this evening, we obviously get a bunch of 10 great speeches, and we've come away pumped, excited, and we understand. We understand. I can't believe somebody would pour palinka on Francisco. Can't believe a human being would do that with anybody. But it happened in this city. But we all come away, hopefully, with a little extra something that says, you know what, maybe one day, when I'm given the opportunity to test myself, maybe one day, I'll be able to reach back to those examples that I saw in that room that night in the Marriott. And maybe one day, if I'm lucky, life will give me that opportunity to test myself. Because that's what bothers me about adults. Kids have ample opportunities in their lives to test themselves, to put themselves under pressure, to feel what it's like to potentially lose. But somehow as we become older, we grow up, we lose that desire to put ourselves to the test. But not these people. All these people had a choice to walk away, never get involved. But they decided to go down a road, and I doubt, Monica, if you ever 6 months ago thought you would want to become a public speaker. Probably not, right? You're laying in yoga, you're already falling asleep at the relaxation part, right? But now they have something new. And the big question is, they made a great choice when they decided to follow through and do it. Now the big question is, what do they do with what they have? And so I sincerely hope from the bottom of my heart that everybody finds a way to use this skill that they have developed and achieved tonight. But I also hope that those who didn't come up here on stage today because it just wasn't part of the cards and they haven't gone through a course like this, is that maybe not public speaking, because I'm sure that public speaking is not for everyone. But you find some area in life that you challenge yourself, and then you do it. And you keep doing it. We met weekly, every week. We met weekly with the adults. We met weekly with the young adults. We met weekly in the in the school where Francisco went. And sometimes it was boring, and sometimes you thought, we're just not making a lot of progress. But then when a day like this rolls around and you see what the people do on stage, and this isn't us. I mean, we're like a catalyst. Clearly, we'll take responsibility for getting the thing started. But you got to do it. Francisca, you, Monica, Zoli, Daisy, Gergely, even Sabado Shlevin, you haven't heard him speak. You hear him speak, and you'll be in tears. And not necessarily because he's trying to make you cry, because he shows you the real side of him. So I'd like to say thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much to our 10 speakers for all the work and effort you put in. And thank you very much for setting the right example. I think you, as we said at our table several times, the bar has been set. The bar has been set high. And that, quite frankly, makes me pretty happy. I had a guy in college said, you can guarantee success by putting the bar real low. I said, you're right. But that just doesn't have the same taste. So with that, I wish each and every one of you a wonderful rest of the evening. Dessert is still behind, and coffee. I hope you take away something today. These people put their time, energy, and effort into it, and I think they work magic. And I encourage every one of you to find an area, whether you're young or old, find an area in your life that you can apply the energy to and the time. And watch the magic happen when you get your day on stage. Bon appetit.